I hate my voice on camera.
You just got to get used to it.
I know. Are we going?
We're live. We're rolling.
All right. Well, welcome to the Bitcoin Bay office.
Thank you.
You know, it's a pleasure to have a future pro baller here.
I appreciate that. It's coming along really well. Looks great in here.
Yeah. we're building and growing.
That's right.
And looking forward to doing more. Like especially with Sophie Institute, which I'm sure you get all sorts of questions about. But one of the big things that we try to encourage here is like local entrepreneurship. And so I know for you that's something that's really important. So why don't you talk about a little bit, like what your what your plans are in the near future? I know you want to try and get out there and engage, young entrepreneurs and kind of explain your journey.
Yeah, for sure. I think that entrepreneurship is something that everyone has inside of them. It doesn't just mean that you have to be like this crazy, harebrained, like mad scientist that's always working on a business idea. You can be an entrepreneur in your own life and even like still have a traditional job in a sense. I think that an entrepreneur is just someone who looks for value and they look to create a lot of value in different places.
Yeah.
And then that's like the coolest part about it for me. That's why I just I'm wired that way, entrepreneurial minded. Like I just want to create value for people.
Yeah.
I want to create cool, beautiful things that make a difference. And for as long as I remember, I've always been like that. I remember I was probably 15 years old in Texas, and my dad came into my room one time, and he's like, "What do you want to do?" He's like, "What do you want to accomplish? Like, what do you want to do?" Because I was always working on all these different things. And I was like, "I don't know. Like, I got a lot of different passions. Like, there's a lot of stuff I want to do." And I didn't realize until later that was actually a good thing, that that's just kind of how I was wired, that as long as I had the discipline and consistency to sit down and follow through with some of those passions, the entrepreneurial-minded people can accomplish a whole lot of stuff. So yeah, I'm super encouraging of it. I like to try to help the younger generation to grow into that and to help them to follow their passions and not feel like they're confined to a specific box, but get out there and do cool things and fail, but the more you fail, the more you'll succeed. So
right.
It's cool stuff.
And that discipline and that follow-through is what's probably the most important thing for entrepreneurs, because that was definitely something that I struggled with. Was there's all of these things that need to be done, and I want to start doing them. But then, like when we first started Bitcoin Bay, we had these two gals from UT helping us out, and we just incorporated, and so we were kind of going through like an everything, everywhere, all at once strategy, and we were just kind of spinning around instead of like actually going towards a goal, because like we the goal of Bitcoin Bay is to be the brain for Bitcoin in the Bay Area. We want to create the circular economy. We want to create a vacation spot for Bitcoiners. But like, what does that mean? Where do you start? Where do you go with that? So we were just kind of, going in circles, accomplishing things, which you can do for a little bit as an entrepreneur. And I think, and I don't necessarily think like starting out with like, I have 10 things that I can do and just go. But you need to kind of like take stock and then be like, all right, which one of these are working? Because there's probably like 2 or 3 of them. And then actually focus down, see where you go, and then stay consistent and diligent on those things. And something that I struggled with initially was when you are your own boss, you are in charge of yourself, and it's very easy to be like, all right, let's wake up at 10. There's no one enforcing structure on you. And I think that's where a lot of people end up failing, is that because as we grow up, and obviously you had a bit of different upbringing, being in homeschool, like you were used to this not very structured experience already.
You missed the catch, by the way. Come on, dude.
But we're brought up. But we're brought up in a very structured, rigid environment, and I think how people fail a lot is like during college, which is basically turning the adult daycare. You have, like I failed exams, so I knew that like I wasn't perfect in that. Like, okay, I need to adapt here, and I had a schedule. I think when people get out of college, and maybe if they didn't fail any exams there, they took easy classes, they never experienced actually like oh shit, I lost on this, And they get out into the real world, and then now if they don't maybe have a structure from an employer, or they're not used to, getting punched in the chin, that people kind of flounder and then end up not really finding somewhere. So how did you, when you were trying to decide with all the things you wanted to do, how did you, what was your decision making process there? Like, how did you decide like this is what it is, or did you ever decide and it kind of just happened?
Yeah, so a couple things. I think that for entrepreneurs, it's really important to find what you're passionate about because you're naturally going to be better at what you're passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
View it as work. You enjoy doing it. You enjoy working towards success within that area. I really enjoyed sports growing up.
Mm-hmm.
I played soccer, tennis, football, did a little cross country and track at my local high school. So the easiest way for me to start in my entrepreneurial ventures was by training local kids in the sports that I was already doing. I was passionate about it. I knew a lot about it. I wanted to help them succeed. And so it was kind of a no-brainer.
Mm-hmm.
So then there were things I had to learn to equip myself with to be a good personal trainer.
Mm-hmm.
Just being a great athlete doesn't mean that you're going to be a good personal trainer. But the foundation was that I had a passion for sports. And so I started working with local kids, doing soccer lessons, $20 an hour. It wasn't anything crazy. I'd create a little Google Doc of the drills that we would go through. I'd follow up with them and their parents to make sure that they knew that they were getting value out of it and that they
Mm-hmm.
were seeing improvement week to week. And then through that process, you do a really good job as a professional, and then things grow naturally. So pretty soon I started taking on more clients. I was doing a lot more trainings. I was able to raise my prices. My sister Sophie started working with me. So at that point, we actually had a team.
Mm-hmm.
We were working together. We were both doing individual lessons, but we were doing group lessons as well. We got better equipment. We were more disciplined about our structure as far as our Google Docs and keeping all of our business in one area. You think about like payment processing. How do these parents want to pay? So there's all these other things that you have to figure out when it comes to being an entrepreneur. But as long as you have your baseline foundation passion to run with, then you can figure those things out. And I think the other point that goes along with that is delegation. Because once you start to form a team, everyone's a unique individual that has their own passions and their own things that they're really good at. So you want to be able to inspire and motivate others to be great at what they're kind of naturally good at already and what they enjoy doing. So it's controlled chaos because when you have a startup or when you're being an entrepreneur, nothing goes perfectly according to plan. But if each person is specifically working within their niche as part of the greater unit, you can experience a lot of success over time. And then as far as the failure thing, I think that restructuring the way that you view failure is very important. Coach Free at Notre Dame had a quote that he'd always tell us, and he said, "You either win or you learn." But he didn't even like using the word failure because failure is so subjective. Because we fail throughout the day, but we don't always look at it as like this great catastrophic failure. It's just a learning opportunity. It's a way to get better and improve. And so being an entrepreneur is coming to terms with that, restructuring your mindset a little bit, and then carrying that new perspective on through your next ventures.
Nice. Yeah, and I think what a lot of people might get stuck on, and kind of what I did as well, was okay, I need to scale, but like you need to have those $20 an hour. You need to have those kids first. You need to have something to scale from. You don't have to go straight to managing a team, to getting automation systems and stuff set up. And especially in the beginning, you are doing everything, but that's where you bring in a team that's complementary to you, and you're able to delegate. And that's I think one of the more important things that people need to understand when they're going looking to start a business or whatever is that you started coaching because you loved coaching. I think it's like the baker problem. I think is like kind of the thing is you start a baking a bakery because you love baking, but then you're growing and you hire people, and now you're running admin, and now you're not baking anymore. You're not doing the thing that you were passionate about. You're now running a business. So and not everyone I guess is really cut out for that. I mean, like if I wanted to bake, I don't want to run a business.
Right.
Like I'm gonna go work as a baker. But how do you how would you suggest like someone like works through like that mindset of I'm passionate about coaching and all I want to do is coach, but then once you start growing and adding, you get the admin, you get the taxes, you get the business stuff, and then now you've gotten so far away from the thing you just wanted to do. How do you have you experienced that yet, or what's that like in your experience?
For sure, and I think that there's two parts. So to the trainer, I would ask, why scale? If you're already doing what you love doing, if you're feeling fulfilled in what you do on a daily basis, if you love working with kids on a routine basis and watching them grow every single day and helping them to develop into great athletes, what's the big desire to scale?
Mm-hmm.
Why risk? Yeah, but again, it's like even if people are so monetarily driven, sometimes that financial drive gets in the way
Mm-hmm.
of your passion on a daily
Right.
basis. So again, it's like what matters more, the money or
Mm-hmm.
making an impact in that child's life? And then some people, they are very entrepreneurial and they do want to handle the complexity of the scaling. And
Mm-hmm.
to those people, you have to value invest. You
Right.
have to find the people that we're talking about that enjoy the daily trainings.
Mm-hmm.
That aren't going to be the ones that are running these massive operations, but they just want to go to work every single day, make a kid's day, and
Mm-hmm.
just be a great influence. You find those people, you value invest, and then
Mm-hmm.
you bring those as part of your company so that you can be the one to scale and you can be the one to manage things behind the scenes. And then everyone has to just analyze themselves and see where they fit on that spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I kind of enjoy both. I like training, I like being there,
Right.
but I like the growth part too. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think as far as my journey has gone, I've spent a lot of my foundational years being the guy that was there, that was helping them
Mm-hmm.
grow and train. Now I'm more prepared to step into that role as more of the overseer, of the architect behind the scenes that's
Mm-hmm.
scaling that business.
Yeah, and and there's something to be said for someone who just wants to cut the check. I want to do the job and I want to cash my check. I don't have to worry about the insurance. I don't have to worry about the social media, this, that, and the other. I just want to bake bread. I want to train kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, God bless them. Like you can't, you have to have a foundation to build on top of.
Yeah, but I would encourage those people too to not get caught up in the societal construct of more money is always better,
Right.
growth is always better. I really feel like as humans, like we view value differently. Like
Mm-hmm.
value is very subjective.
Right.
And so I'm perfectly okay with maybe not accomplishing as much as I could as an
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneur, but also not sacrificing on my values
Right.
and what I want to stand
Oh
by.
yeah.
That's cool. I'm
Yeah.
fine with that. I know that I might not be exploring my greatest potential within a specific context
Mm-hmm.
because I am a really strong Christian or because I'm an Austrian economist or whatever the case may be.
Right.
I'm okay making my impact as a person by standing on my values first.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to let society try to get me into this mindset of growth is better, more money is always better. You got to follow your passions and stay true to who you are.
Oh, dude, I calculated that. So I mean, I could have a lot more money if I stuck with my major. I calculated the opportunity cost of not working for big pharma, and I was just like, it almost made me sick with how much more Bitcoin I would have. But like I wouldn't have met the people that I've met, and I'd be stuck at a job that like I don't believe in. Working for a system that like I view is actually evil. So that definitely is something that like people I mean everyone's got different it's definitely the mindset so it's definitely
perspective is huge.
Right.
I think cultivating a perspective on what your purpose is something that everyone seeks to have. Everyone wants to find purpose. Everyone wants to find fulfillment in life. But you can't turn to the world to find it.
Right.
You got to view yourself internally to find what that purpose is.
So you're wanting to go around and speak to young people. So is that kind of what you're hoping to instill, that different perspective, that mindset into young people? Is that kind of your goal?
Absolutely. I would love to cultivate a generation of just independent, free-willed people that were exploring their passions and weren't beat down by society or cared so much about what other people thought, but they were just devoted to building beautiful things and doing their best at everything in life. I think that would be like the coolest thing ever. And so for me, like as a Christian, I can't imagine working towards something that is more fulfilling than that. Like I can't imagine like going into a job somewhere and making a bunch of money and actually being happier at the end of the day than how I am now working towards this mission.
Right. And I think a lot of people also get hung up on the check. Like, yeah, you're making a ton of money for what? What you're stacking? You can have all all the Bitcoin in the world, but like for what? What are you hoping to accomplish? And I mean, and if all we're able to do is bring a little more beauty in the world, I mean, I think that'd be a win. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, that's a whole other topic, but
I love the analogy on like generations building wealth. My dad used to always tell me something. He's like, there's a saying like dust to dust in 3 generations.
Yeah.
Like your grandparents have worked super hard
right.
at like general labor jobs, like working on a farm, going to Delco every single day and working until midnight so that I could have some success, so that I could go to college and then pass that down to my generation. And for me, you don't have to have a fall off in generation. Like you can have generational success that builds on each other.
Right.
but you have to cultivate a set of values
Mm-hmm.
that you stand by. And you start chasing money, you start chasing checks, then I think that can kind of muddy the waters a little bit,
Right.
and then lead to that like kind of generational off
Right.
the edge a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, like, how do you keep, like, it's definitely, it's so true. I mean, like, you get the people that worked, you get the kids that didn't necessarily grow up rich, but like, saw their parents work and understood that, but then their kids grew up with not knowing anything else from this. So if you're not able to, distill those values down that line, the great grandkids are gonna, like, you see it everywhere. And I think that's a big, you have some families, like, that are able to distill their values down the long term, but I think that's probably a big uh, consequence. That's probably a big consequence of kind of the fiat system. The money is worth less now than it was then.
Yeah.
So I mean, you had these issues, on a gold standard as well, but I mean, it's really a value-based thing, and so I think that's really important that you and the Liberty Villages are working on the kids. So what's going on with Liberty Villages on that front?
Yeah, well, I want to focus on your point, what you said earlier. I think is a really wise point about we feel pressured in society to kind of chase the money because we do see our savings vanishing through inflation, through fractional reserve banking, through legalized theft, really.
Yeah.
And so that incentivizes behavior of, well, I'm just going to go make my bread and be all right, and I'm not going to care about anyone else. Where when you were on a gold standard, you have families that were working towards generational wealth. And they wanted to create things of beauty and they wanted to provide for the next generation, and they didn't have that selfish way of thinking. And so the goal behind Liberty Villages, my family's nonprofit, is to get people back to that way of thinking. Building for each other, living for a purpose that extends beyond your own selfish desires and ambitions. And I think that's a very honorable thing to work towards, and it's a very daunting goal to try to revolutionize the way that education is approached, not just in the United States, but in the world. But again, how cool is it that I get to devote my life towards working towards something like that, towards working towards making this world a better place at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's super important in maintaining that generational wealth is that, like, yes, you've been blessed, but now you have the responsibility to take what your parents have built and build on top of that. Like, you have the freedom to choose what you want to do. You don't have to go be a debt slave. Like you're not pulling yourself out of poverty or like whatever situation that a lot of people find themselves in. So people can whinge about privilege and this and that, but it's a responsibility that you have to be a steward of those resources that you were given. Like, that was a blessing.
I agree.
And that's how you plant trees, with shade you never see. That's how you get. I mean, like, are you familiar with this, like, La Sagrada Familia in Spain?
I don't think so.
So it's Antoni Gaudi's project from the 1900s. So Gaudi is where you get the term Gaudi. Like, if something's Gaudi, it's like it's from this guy and his architectural style. He's fantastic. All over Barcelona. Completely changed the entire architecture of Barcelona because everyone had to compete with him.
Right.
But they've been building this cathedral they're still building it. I mean, they've been building it since like maybe late 1800s, early 1900s.
Yeah.
And he died forever ago, and they're still building the thing.
Carrying on his legacy.
Yeah. And so that's how you get that, is when you have that low time preference, and you're actually building for a future and not just, trying to consume it now because it's worth less in the future.
Yep. And it's a mindset that has to be cultivated, because I do think that as humans, we naturally are a little bit selfish, and we kind of want things for ourselves. And so understanding that all of the blessings that you and I have today are because people came before us and sacrificed so that we could have this, I think is really important to understand. And that everything that you and I do is done to benefit the future generations. Because at the end of the day, our time is going to run out. We're going to be dust at the end of the day. And so you're not going to be looking back when you're 95, hopefully 100 years old, and be like, whoa, look at all the good things I did. You're going to be thinking about, what did I do from a world view? Like, what did I do to make this world a better place? Did I prepare my kids, my grandkids with the future of success? That's something that I think that you can have some honor about when you look at it at the end of the day. Building things for yourself and yourself alone, I don't think is sustainable.
No, it's definitely not. You need your gear back, Angelique? Do you need your gear back?
That's fine. I'm not in a rush right now.
Okay. Yeah. So is there anything else you want to kind of cover about the goals you have with Liberty Villages? You've got the football. You've got your football platform coming up. You have your speaking engagements you're trying to whip up. I know we've covered a lot today, but I mean, is there anything else that you think that we've missed?
Yeah, I think I would just end with, I think the coolest thing that we could do is inspire each other to be the best versions of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean the same thing for everyone. That could be athletic career, that could be business career, that could be whatever someone chooses to do. But approaching whatever you want to do and just doing it wholeheartedly, as passionately as possible for a purpose, I think is pretty awesome. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's like my inspiration, why I keep going, why I want to be a football player and, be a motivational speaker, have a nonprofit and have a business of my own, is you're always working towards empowering people to be the best versions of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Bitcoin Bay kind of has those fundamentals aligned.
Oh, I certainly hope so. And actually, I want to touch on that a little bit because I mean, there's a huge problem now, especially with like younger guys. Um, just the sheer nihilism of like the whole thing's fucked. Like I often feel like Indiana Jones like sliding under the door, like reaching back for my hat and like losing my arm. Like that's how I feel like close I was to like actually to getting out. Like I made it out, but like not without taking some damage. And then there's the kids that are stuck behind that wall. And some of them have tunneled through, but a lot of them are trapped in the dark still.
Mm-hmm.
And like they don't see any future. And like, what's the point in working for somebody when I'm being taxed at 50%? My dollar is losing its value damn near weekly at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Like what advice do you have for like young guys who are just stuck and what feels like nothing matters and there's no point in trying to improve?
Well, it's really tough because I'm a super optimistic person. I feel like that's cultivated through 24 years of existence.
Right.
So I don't think that there's one specific thing that I can say that's going to all of a sudden make them feel so inspired.
Mm-hmm.
But what I can say is that you have a choice. Okay, so there's a lot of events that happen to us that we have no control over. But what we always have control over is our response to those events, and that's what dictates the outcome. And so wherever you are, whatever situation that you happen to be in, there are events that are out of your control that are happening to you, but you can always choose your response to that. You're an individual created by God that has a free will and a purpose to be here. So choose your purpose. Choose how you respond to those events. That's going to dictate your outcome. They're not going to dictate your outcome.
Right.
You can dictate your outcome. There's a difference between saying that here and actually truly believing that. But you got to. There's no other way.
Right.
The first step is believing.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, it's probably a great spot to end it on.
Cool.
Let's go.
Get it.